ServiceNow is one of the world's largest enterprise software companies. And in 2026, that can only mean one thing: layoffs and restructurings revolving around AI. Guys, reports are flowing in that hundreds and hundreds of people have been laid off over the past 24 hours, but it's not as simple as just going in and replacing a bunch of employees with AI, although AI plays a very, very central role, and we're gonna cover that in today's video. And quite frankly, if you wanna survive in a world where AI is replacing roles, I think understanding what's happening with companies is important. I think understanding what's possible with software is important. This is the time to subscribe to the channel 6 days a week. We're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about what it means as a man to be relevant, respected, and financially free in a world where AI is really threatening that in a lot of ways, but in some ways also heightening it. Anyways, don't just take my word for it. The company released several statements in regards to the layoffs. Quote, ServiceNow is committed to having the right talent in the right roles. And that means making necessary changes to how we are structured. That's a really important statement. Hold that thought, we'll be right back. Continuing, they said, we are driving efficiencies across the business, actively investing in and hiring for AI-focused skills, and managing headcount with discipline to end 2026, where we started, as we shared earlier this year. That's how we grow sustainably and win, end quote. And again, we covered ServiceNow about a month ago where they started announcing that the layoffs were happening, which was kind of funny because they kind of started by the year by saying there's no layoffs, and then they decided there are gonna be layoffs. So anyways, you can go check out that video here. We'll post a link to it there. But there's something here that I think is really, really important to understand for everyone, but especially all our friends in tech and anyone who's investing in tech. ServiceNow, like many, many tech companies, is going all in on AI execution. AI is going to be fundamental, the way that computers are fundamental to the way that we operate now. Now, this doesn't always, again, mean just replacing everyone with AI and automation. I mean, we've seen guys like Mark Benioff over at Salesforce. We've seen Klarna do that. We've seen ClickUp do that. We've seen a bunch of companies talk about just replacing half their staff or all of their staff, customer service especially, with AI bots, although quality control tends to suffer. So anyway, that's not really what we're seeing with these big companies right now. What it does mean, though, is investing big time into AI and into workflows, and into automations and coding and building and so on and so forth. The problem, though, is where do you get the funds for that? Where do you get the money to invest so heavily into the AI build-outs? You guessed it, labor. You gotta lay people off to free up that capital, which certainly doesn't feel good. Now, what's also interesting is one of the common threads that we've seen is that a lot of companies are going through like a bad financial struggle, and then they end up doing a bunch of layoffs during that sort of death knell of the company. The company's doing poorly, financials aren't working, they're bleeding subscriptions and revenue, and they end up doing layoffs. And we actually covered Monday.com a couple days ago. I'll post a link to the video here, which is project management software that it just went through a big round of layoffs as a result of, well, AI restructuring. Again, watch that video. I think that's an interesting one about what's happening over at Monday. I mean, the entire SaaS industry, software as a service, is being completely flipped on its head. The whole subscription-based model is, I think, being rethought. User-based model is being right now. But anyway, regardless, that is not what's happening in ServiceNow. ServiceNow is crushing it. Their second quarter subscription revenue, guys, was nearly $4 billion ahead of the Wall Street expectations. And their annual subscription revenue forecast, well, they just increased it again for the second time this year. So they are crushing it. Not only are they crushing it, they are dropping they're dropping bodies behind them as they grow and implementing more and more AI. And I found it interesting. I hopped on Reddit to see what people are saying, and there's a lot of reports on Reddit of impacted employees in different departments like engineering and data analytics, definitely places where AI is playing a big, big role. And I don't think that software engineers are going to be gone. I think data analytics are going to be gone. People in data analytics are going to be gone. But what is going to happen is AI is going to be playing a much larger role. I mean, I'm talking to the CTO of a company I work for the other day, and I've mentioned this before. He's like, I don't write code anymore, Mark. I just conduct the Claude code bot to write the code for me, and then I make sure that it's solid and looks good. And I think that's closer to what we're looking at. And by the way, I don't know about you, but if you're smart and you're using AI in a lot of these different roles, if you're using Claude Cowork, I do kind of I have a new problem, I guess, and that there's a lot of context switching. You know, it's kind of that issue where you've got 100 windows open on your computer, but now it's like, well, I have 100 windows open, but one of those windows I have to keep kind of like revisiting every 5 to 10 minutes, and it's very difficult to context switch that much. I wonder if that's going to be a new skill that's going to be kind of a requirement. You know, the challenge though is that the human brain is not really meant to context switch. The human brain is meant to get locked in and double down on a topic. Anyway, back to the ServiceNow layoffs. This layoff was global, all the way from India to the United States. And many people reported that they were getting emails to their inbox at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, letting them know that, well, their services were no longer needed. Ireland reported a mandatory Zoom meetings where the layoffs occurred. And it's kind of tough to discern the exact number because apparently you couldn't actually see how many people were in the room. It was anonymous. You didn't know who was getting laid off, which departments. Was it your friend Jim or was it Karen from HR? Who was getting laid off? It wasn't 100% clear, but that was done via Zoom. Now, it is also worth noting, guys, that if you're in a tech company or if you're in any company, the layoffs can happen fast. Sometimes suddenly, you might not necessarily see it coming. And the issue is that when the layoffs happen, they happen fast. You're all of a sudden going to lose access to all of basically everything that you had within the company. You lose your company email, all the systems, and which again makes sense because if I'm going to be firing one person, let alone 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, I'm not necessarily going to want to have all those employees continue to retain their access. A lot of those people are going to be upset, reasonably in some cases. And what does an angry ex-employee do? Well, they can cause lots of drama. Have you ever had an angry ex-girlfriend? Yeah, they can cause a lot of drama in your life. So anyway, you kind of want to cut them out so they can't go in and sabotage stuff that's been built out in your software, which makes sense. But what it does mean is that before you get the announcement that you're being laid off, you might want to prepare ahead of time. Now, that doesn't mean downloading and taking confidential information from the company, but it means you might want to make sure that you have contact information. Maybe there's people you've built and a network you've built. You don't want to just lose all that contact information. Maybe you've got results that you've gotten for the company. Maybe there's stuff that you've built and you want to just kind of document and so that you can update a resume or your personal brand on LinkedIn. And maybe you want to kind of just like have some receipts from the work that you've done. Again, I'm not telling you to go in and download confidential information. What I am saying is that there might be results that you've been able to get and data that is not confidential, but can help you build up your status. What about personal accounts that are set up, like travel accounts, for example? Maybe you have a personal account that's been built with a company email. You could lose that, right? So these are things that we kind of need to be considering. And again, guys, the point of this channel is not necessarily to doom and gloom you, but it's to be realistic about the time that we're in. And how do we prepare for what could happen? There's a reason why we buy life insurance, we buy insurance in general, why we have an IRA, because we say like things are going to happen in the future. We want to be prepared for it, okay? And the reality is that losing your job and finding new work is certainly part of life. And in this AI world, it's happening faster. The speed and scale is unprecedented, which is, again, it's why, hey, what you need now, start taking steps, regardless of your company you're in, kind of start making steps, getting prepared ahead. Build up relationships that matter. I've talked about that before, although I like how people say that's boomer advice, but I don't know. I think that the relationships you have matter probably more now than perhaps ever in the past. You can disagree with me in the comments. That's fine. But you also want to be building up some sort of side income, additional income streams. That's not passive income, but for me, I've got 5 different income streams. If one income stream goes down, I can shift my priorities and efforts and focus over to other income streams and build those up. So I guess the point here, guys, is that even if your company is crushing it and doing well, it doesn't mean that you're invulnerable. Using the AI, planning ahead, really, really important. So anyway, I hope you liked today's video, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you did like today's video, check out yesterday's video where we talk about a shocking 92% increase in the amount of tech layoffs this year. Really, really crazy. Check out yesterday's video and I'll see you there. All right, boys, see ya, peace.